Okay everybody, so I had a bunch of orders. It has a lot of the phases of the moon. I love this piece. It's one of my favorite things, and I use this awesome glass that you see here. It's called raindrop glass. It's really pretty, but I love using it because the texture of the glass really looks like moon critters. So I'm a big fan of this type of glass. So what I did was I actually just found some pictures of moon phases online and kind of traced the ones that I like, and then I just printed them out. Basically, try to save as much glass as I can. I don't have that much glass to spare, so I'll kind of show you kind of my no-brainer way to make circles. And I especially do it this way when I don't have glass that I can waste. So basically what I do is I make a square right where my full moon is, right on the edge of it, and then all I do is trim off the corners. Corners are super easy to cut off. It's very easy to curve. It's just a slight curve on a circle, so this makes it very, very easy. If my moon was bigger, I would just square it out evenly, so my square cut would fall on the 4 sides of the circle, and I would only have to cut out the corners. It's gonna look a little rigid since I didn't cut it out all in one piece, but that will smooth out nice and easy with the grinder. So if you're like really intimidated doing circles, this is a great way to start out. Now it gets actually harder. A lot of people think circles are like the hardest thing, but it's not to me. It's more of like when I get down to the thinner, pointier pieces like the crescent moons. But I start out the same way. I cut out that square, I cut out the edges, but when I do the inside of the crescent, I just slowly work myself in. As you see here, I did not cut to the line. I just kind of cut almost to it, and I work my way in. This is a great way to do it. But also, when I break the glass off, if you pay attention here, I pull away from the glass. I don't push down, I kind of pull sideways. So I'm not really actually putting any pressure up or down. I'm kind of just pulling it away, straight away. So that works for me really, really well as things get kind of trickier as they get pointy. And of course you can grind it down. You don't have to cut as close to the line. I always try to get as close as I can just to see if I can do it, but you know, don't be intimidated or don't get bummed out if it keeps breaking, because you can grind that down. You don't have to cut straight to the line. So here I am just grinding all my pieces, making them nice and smooth, making sure they are all in shape. And I do that by just following the line of my pattern. Sometimes you will feel the need to kind of grind in spots where you don't see your pattern. Just try to not do that. I tend to really want to do that. I think, oh, this looks like it's uneven, but it isn't. You just have to trust that your pattern was straight and just cut off to the pattern, or just grind off to the pattern. And then you are going to want to really clean your glass pieces. Obviously you have oils from your hands, especially if you use cutting oil. You know, your foil could not stick to it just for the sake of having the oil, just your natural oils from your hands. So sometimes you could get foil and think the stuff isn't working, but it's really, you have kind of an oily piece of glass. So you want to use a nice, astringent, really like oil cleansing cleaner. Okay, then you're going to want to apply your foil. Now, when you do apply your foil, of course you're going to want to make sure it is even on all sides. And once you get in the groove of it, once you've done like 1 or 2 pieces, you're actually gonna notice that you really only have to look at one side of the glass, one side of the foil, and you'll really know the thickness it's supposed to be. And then make sure you burnish it nicely. You want to get rid of all the air bubbles under there. They have burnishers you could buy. I usually, like always, just use whatever is near me. I'm so impatient. I just want to create, you know, my art, and it's, you know, that causes me a lot of stress sometimes. So, you know, get a burnisher, use whatever, but make sure you do burnish it. So this this piece can get pretty heavy. You want to make sure your solder is nice and thick. Of course, you don't want it falling apart when you hang it up. And it's kind of heavy. I mean, it's over a pound. My piece usually is around 16 inches and it's about like 19 ounces. So it's something that, you know, I have like a gemstone that I hang off of each one of my moon phases, and I want to make sure it does not pull apart from itself, from its own weight. I do this by really making a nice thick bead of solder around the edges. I'll even drop it down onto my workbench and glide it over. It's a lot of fun to work with. I can flick away any like metal that I feel like is too much if it looks uneven, and you know, of course the solder stays nice and molten, and it's just kind of a beautiful way to work with it, I think. So I do that on each one of my moons, making sure they're nice and solid. Alright, and then you're going to want to do the same thing. You want to really clean this off really well. I use a copper patina. I'm just obsessed with copper, and it will not work well if you have any flux or oil or debris on there, so make sure it's nice and clean. And this is one of my favorite parts. I feel like I say that all the time. I just feel like an alchemist when I do this. The minute your patina touches your solder, it just turns this beautiful, beautiful, magical color, and it makes everything worth it. I just love, this is what I love about, you know, the art that I do, is it starts out as this one beautiful piece of glass that I don't want to cut, and then becomes a beautiful piece of glass that's a pain in the butt to cut. But then at every step it just transforms, and it's really, you know, really kind of magical for me, especially at the end when I see it, you know, and if a customer wants it, it's just really rewarding, and I just think these are like really magical pieces. But yeah, so now I used copper jump rings, but if you don't have copper jump rings and you want to try this out, you can use regular silver jump rings. If they do not patina, just make sure you kind of put a nice little film of solder around it. And once you do apply your patina, you're going to want to buff it off almost immediately after. I just use the other end of my washcloth here and I buff it right off. You don't want to keep the patina on there. Alright, so now I use this really pretty, almost delicate looking yet strong chain, and now when you work with little like chain like this, you really want to make sure you do not compromise the links. You want to kind of, I have a little mark on my workbench on how long each chain has to be. I have 5 pieces of chain that I have to cut out, but in doing so, I want to make sure I do not break any of the links. I do not use like the wire cutters or anything like that to cut the chain, because you kind of jeopardize cutting a link and not realizing it. You know, and then when you or your customer hangs it up, it could just fall apart right there, and you will not understand why until you look at it and realize the links were weak. So I would just take 2 pairs of pliers and open one link up and get rid of that link, and then there you go, you have your piece of chain. So I really do analyze each chain, making sure I did not, you know, compromise or accidentally open up any of the links. And then you are just going to connect all your pieces. I finish mine off with a gemstone. I let my customers pick out what kind of druzy they would like from what I have. And this one picked out this really pretty pale green one, which you can see in the basket right there. The one before this that I did, because I'm sure you saw I cut out way more moon phases than you see here. They picked out a beautiful, beautiful white quartz one. It's just really cool to kind of let the customer customize their own little piece. I love crystals because I really think they give it like a whimsical, magical kind of energy to the room. So I'm a big fan of anything like that. And here she is. She is beautiful. I'm in love with all things moon phases. Anything celestial, I just think is really beautiful. So I have to now go wrap her up and ship her off to California. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment. If you have any questions, of course, also comment. Be sure to subscribe and check out my Facebook page. I'll have it linked below. Thanks for calling.